Cool. Well, let's start on the weighted average exercise first. Zoom in a little bit more. So basically, do you know what a weighted average is first?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So first thing that we're going to do here is calculate the averages for each group. And you feel pretty comfortable about that part?
I think so.
Okay, so give me an example. Just kind of talk me through this here. I'm going to click on student one, the average for their assignments. What should I type to calculate this?
Equal sign and then average.
Okay,
And then I'd probably just click on cells B3 to B or H3.
perfect. Sounds like a great idea. I'll do the same thing. B3 through H3. I'll do closing parentheses and enter. And yeah, it looks good to me. The student, their highest grade is at 90, but most of them seem to be in the 70s there. They do have that 0, which would bring down the average. So I'm going to assume that that's accurate because it looks reasonable. It's not wacky high. It's not wacky low. And then I'm going to click this and I'll just use the fill handle and double click it. And that'll bring that average down. Oh, and here's a good example. Student number 9, they have an average of 100. All their grades are 100. So it looks like it's pretty accurate. And if we took one of these hundreds and made them a 0, then obviously that's going to lower the average.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, excellent. I'm going to go ahead and repeat that process over here. So for the quizzes equals average, I'll select that group. It gets me a number that's really big, apparently. Oh, I must have made a mistake. So I'm going to try that again. Equals average. And let's try this again. Ready? And we should be able to do it this way too. I'm going to click on this and just click my auto sum drop down and then average. Well, that gets too many. So I'll select the right ones and press enter. Perfect. Okay, so we have our averages in there. Now it gets trickier. What we want to do off to the side is I want to calculate their class grade. And again, we're just going to focus on student 1 here. I can see what their average assignment grade is, their average quiz grade, and their average exam grade. So do you have a guess on what we're going to type in order to calculate the weighted average grade? And it's okay if you don't know.
I don't think so.
Okay. So we're just going to calculate a formula. There's no function that we're going to use here. Instead, we're going to calculate a formula. And the key to the weighted average is to multiply the individual portions of assignment, quiz, or exam by their weight, 40%, 30%, and 30%. And then we're going to add all those numbers together. So we're going to end up with 3 multiplication formulas all added together. Now, a couple weeks ago in class, we did something where we calculated the weighted average of some credit card debt. Did you happen to catch the recording of that?
Yeah, I did watch that one.
Perfect. It's going to be the exact same procedure, except instead of having different credit card weights with different interest rates, now we have different activity weights with different weight values.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. I want this to be a little bit bigger. And let me scroll here. So I'm going to be working off to the side. And I'm going to start off my formula with equals. And I'm going to use parentheses. It's actually essential here because we want to force the order of operations. I suppose technically the multiplication would occur first, so maybe these parentheses won't be necessary. But I still like having those parentheses on there because it kind of keeps me organized on the 3 key parts of this formula. So I'm going to take the average assignment grade, and I'm going to multiply that by the weight of the grades, the weight of the assignments. And let's see, I'm going to press F4 to make that part of the assignment or that part of the formula absolute, closing parentheses. So what I have here is student 1's average assignment grade multiplied by that 40%, by that weight. Now, I made it absolute. Do you know why I made this part of the formula absolute, but not the other part?
Because it's the 40% of the total grade.
It is true, but
It's
I
not
have
going
an
to change.
intention. Yeah, that's right. It's not going to change. That's the key right there, because I intend to copy this formula down to all these other students. Well, I3 is student one's average grade. I want the next one to be what, I4, and the next one's going to be I5. So I want a relative reference when I want that cell reference to change when I copy it. However, all of these students are going to be using that B1 40%. So I want the B1 to stay permanent, to stay absolute.
Okay.
And in fact, this would be a working formula, even though it's not exactly what we want. But if I click that and then I double click to fill it down, and I go to one of these other formulas, I can see, hey, there's I6 times B1. Perfect. And then here's another one, I4 times B1. And all the way near the bottom, I10 times B1. So the absolute reference keeps that permanent for all of the different formulas. I'm going to double click on this formula and continue working, but that's the basic syntax right there. And I'm going to do a plus parentheses, and I'm going to take the average quiz grade multiplied by the weight of the quizzes, make that absolute, closing parentheses, plus parentheses, and then I want the average exam grade. Now I can't easily click on that average exam grade right there because my formula is covering it up. So I'm going to type that one in by hand. What is that? T3. So T3 times the weight, absolute on the weight. Are you a Mac user or a Windows user?
Mac.
Mac, okay. So I'm pressing the F4 key to quickly make those absolute. Does the F4 key work for you to make things absolute?
No.
Okay, I think it's Command T on your Mac.
Okay.
You might give that a try sometime.
Yeah.
And Command T, I believe, is the shortcut. However, even if you didn't know the shortcut, you can manually type those $signs in there.
Okay.
Cool. All right, so I think we're almost here. We've got our 3 multiplication problems, formulas, and we're adding those all together, and that's going to give us a weighted average grade. So student 1 has a weighted average grade of 75.19. And now that I've worked on this one formula, this one student, I can double click to autofill that down to all the others. And we should be able to see that it's doing pretty well. This student here at the bottom, they had 100% average on assignments, 100% average on quizzes, and then they got a 100 on the midterm and they took a 0 on the final for whatever reason. Well, it's pretty easy for us to do this math in our head. 100 and 0 is going to average out to 50. Okay, that makes sense. If exams are 30% of their grade and they got a 0 on half of that, that's a 0 on 15%. 100% minus 15% gets us to 85. So we can feel pretty confident that this weighted formula is accurate.
Okay.
So there's our weighted average. Okay, let me double click on one of these just so you can see that formula again. So again, we're just taking the average of that category and multiplying it by the weight of the category. And we use cell references because then if this is our class, you know, if you're the teacher for this class, you can change things up. You can say, ooh, what if assignments are only 20% and quizzes are only 20%, but now exams are 60%. That's a heavy weight. Of course, all of my percentages still add up to 100, but by changing the weight of these, the exams are really valuable now. I've taken classes in college before where the exams were 100% of the grade. We might have 2 or 3 exams and that was it. Now they would have assignments too, but they just weren't counted. Everything was based on the exam. Now that one really good student who did 100 on assignments and 100 on quizzes, their grade is less now because the exams were so important for that grade. Getting a 0 on an exam had a much bigger impact. So if you are good at homework assignments and good at home quizzes, then maybe you want those to have the highest weight and exams to be a smaller weight. But, you know, for students that are great test takers, but they don't like to deal with individual homework, they want this kind of situation. But that's how that works. And let's see, I'm going to put it back to what it was before. What was it before? It was like 40-30 or 30-40. Do you remember?
Where'd mine go?
I think 40 sounds familiar. I think 40,
Yeah, it was 40/30, I'm pretty sure.
40, 30, 30. Okay, that looks right. In fact, if we went down and, okay, there's that 85 there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Now, there was a second phase to this particular challenge. If all the formulas are written properly, student 8 should have 94.29. Is that what we have? Yep, looks like it. 94.29. Cool. Finally, a conditional formatting so that the entire row for a student is shaded yellow if their class grade is 90 or higher. This should have been probably the toughest thing, I think. I didn't demonstrate this in class at all, and I don't think the book talks about conditional formatting, and you should practice conditional formatting from some of your assignments, but this one's a little bit trickier because I want to highlight the entire row. Let me zoom out for a little bit. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and select all of my student data. I'm selecting it from over here, and technically I don't need to do this, but I'm just doing it just to kind of illustrate that I'm looking at all of the student data, including the student names, and all the way over here to the class grade. And then I'm going to go to my conditional formatting ribbon, which is on the home ribbon, or conditional formatting option. And let's see, how do I want to do this? I might be able to do it this way, but I'm going to find out. I'm going to highlight cells. Part of me thinks this isn't going to work the way I want, but I'm going to try it this way anyway. I'm going to highlight cells that are greater than 90. So I'm literally typing in the 90, but you see it's affecting all kinds of stuff over here. That's not really what I want to have happen. And of course, even if I did it, let me do a custom here. Custom format, and the fill is going to be yellow. I'll click OK. Yeah, so that's not really what I want to have happen. That's a pretty good skill. It's nice to be able to highlight everything that's greater than 90, but not quite what I want to have happen. I want to have the entire row highlight based on just the class grade. So I'm going to cancel this, and I'm going to go back to conditional formatting, but this time I'm going to create a new rule, and I'm going to use a formula. And this formula should look pretty easy, but I'm going to say if I need equals, U1, or I'm sorry, U3 is greater than or equal to 90. Now, it's going to look kind of weird, but I want U3, which is the class grade for my first student, I'm going to make it what's called a mixed reference, meaning I'm going to put a $sign in front of the letter U, but not in front of the number 3, which means I'm making the column absolute, but not the row. So if U3, which is student number 1, if their grade is greater than or equal to 90, they should get a yellow background. Well, this student doesn't have the high enough score, so they're not going to get yellow, but we can still work on it this way. So now I'm going to click on Format, Fill. I'll pick a shade of yellow. I'll click OK. And now I'm going to click OK. Look at that. The student down here at the bottom, sample student number 8, they got the yellow highlighting because they were the only student with a grade higher than 90. Now, the reason this worked for me relatively easily is because I started off by selecting this range of cells to work in. Had I not done that, I could still do this, but if I didn't highlight it first, I'd have to go back to my conditional formatting, and I'd have to look at my rules. I'd go to Manage Rules, and I would find that conditional formatting, and I'd make sure it reads just like this. Applies to A3 to U11, which is the whole group here. And then I'll click OK. And there we go. Now we could test this out really easily. I could just pick on a student right here, student number 4, and I'll manually type in 90. Just by changing that class grade to 90, it highlights that entire row. I'm going to press Control Z to undo. Now, of course, the other way we can do this is let's take a student like this one, student number 2, their grade is about 80 or so. And I'm going to change some of the individual grades. I'm going to change their lowest quiz. I'm going to make that 100. Oh, that didn't have much of an impact. So let me change exam 1 to 100. And I'll change exam 2 to 100. Not quite there. I'll change a couple more scores to 100. One more should do it. There we go. As soon as that student gets to 90 or higher, it gets that highlighting that we want. So that kind of takes care of this one. Formatting should affect the row for the student, not just the grade cell, and should apply automatically when the class grade reaches 90. So to do that, we selected the range of cells that we wanted to affect. And then we focused our attention really on this one. I went to conditional formatting, created a new rule, and then I went to the formula rule, create a new based on a formula, and I typed a formula right in here. The formula I typed was equals $U3 greater than equal to 90.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm having trouble getting that. When I do it and change it to formula, it's on a 2-color scale, so then it's asking for a minimum and a maximum.
I got it. Okay. So I think what I want you to do there is just delete that rule. Okay. So I'm going to try this here. I'm going to delete my rule. And basically, it's all gone. I don't have any conditional formatting. Okay. So let's start from scratch here. You have your grades up there and you have some student grades. Perfect. So go ahead and select them with me. Start with the name of sample student 1 and end with the class grade for the last student. So we should have the same worksheet. So basically it's A3 to U11.
Yep.
Have that selected? Excellent. Yeah. Head over to conditional formatting. And I have to remember too, you're on a Mac. I think the technique is pretty much the same, but we do want to keep an eye on that. Okay. I have not done this on a Mac yet, so it could be a little different that I'm not aware of. So conditional formatting, and then we want to go to new rule. And then do you get a menu that looks kind of like this, a new formatting rule, a dialog box?
Not really, no.
Do you see any options for creating a formula to determine the formatting? Anything that looks like?
Yeah, under minimum, it says type, and then there's a drop-down menu that has formula in there.
Perfect. Select that formula option.
Okay.
And then it should give you a little text box somewhere so that you can actually type the formula. Do you have that?
Yeah.
Perfect. So type this along with me. $, $U, number 3, greater than, $, 90. I know that's really tiny, so it's tough to see, but I can't zoom in on that one.
That's okay.
Yeah. So it's equal $U, number 3, greater than, equal, number 9, number 0.
It says you cannot use relative references in conditional formatting criteria for color scales, data bars, and icon sets.
Okay, let's try this. You're on a notebook or desktop, obviously.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have you share your screen.
Okay.
I want to see what you're seeing. So let me hit cancel here. Give me just a moment because I need to make you a co-host. And then I need to stop sharing. Cool. Okay, so if you hover over your screen, you should see a green share button. Cool, I think it's working. Excellent. Okay, so you've got everything highlighted. Perfect. I see your conditional formatting option up there. Okay. Okay. Go back up to that style. We don't want 2-color scale. This is a little tough. All right. Click on classic. Let me see what, and that's not scrollable, is it? Were there other options we don't see?
No.
Man, I can't believe it. Click on where it says format only top or bottom. Click on that. Oh, use a
there we
formula.
go.
This is looking good. Okay, try that. And that little box down there, equal sign,
Oops.
$U, number 3, greater than equal to 90. Okay, now where it's, nope, don't click OK yet. There you go. Go to custom format and go to the fill option up at the top. Looks good. And then just for background color, give me a shade of yellow that you like. Perfect. And then click OK. I'm assuming there's an OK button somewhere. And then click OK again.
Oh,
That's looking pretty good. Well, let's test it out. Go to one of the students over there and just give them a grade of, no, go all the way to the far right. Your other right, there you go. Oops. And just change one of the class grades for somebody to 90. Just manually type, no, press escape. Just type 90 right now and then enter. Perfect. That's what we're looking for right there.
Okay.
Cool.
Awesome.
So the technique is a little bit different on the Mac, but it looks like it's still doable. That's a good sign. Yeah. Perfect. All right, go ahead and end your screen share. And then I will share my screen again. Do that. Perfect. So that takes care of that particular half of that extra credit.
Perfect.
Now I'm going to jump over to this one. Calculate effort bonus for time. Did you give this one a try?
I did. It was more so like the words were more confusing than.
Yeah, this is a little bit more of a complicated word problem.
Yeah.
Let's see. Good news, bad news. Good news is it's just formulas, but it's going to be kind of long looking, and it's going to use functions that are inside of other functions, depending on how far students got. And I haven't looked to see, I know some of your classmates have turned this in, but I haven't looked at them yet to see how close people were getting.
Okay.
And I'm not necessarily expecting people to get 100% on many of these things because they're so darn tough. But I'm kind of expecting that at least some people turn stuff in and we'll get partial extra credit points. So let's see what we got going on here. So this is actually from a class I taught a few years back, and it was a keyboarding class. And so students, I could keep track of how many minutes they spent in the keyboarding software. So that's what these numbers are. They're numbers in minutes. So based on our word problem here, students are going to get some bonus points if they spent more than 20 hours on the work. Okay, so let's stop with that first sentence. If they spent more than 20 hours on the work, that means we need to know how many hours they spent, and we only know how many minutes they spent. So one of the first things I'm going to have to do, let me zoom in here, is we need to create a formula that's going to take the number of minutes and divide it by 60 so that we can figure out how many hours they spent. And I'll just autofill it down to a few students. And so by doing this, we now start to get some of the information we need in order to calculate the formula. Okay, so now I know the number of minutes. Great. I'm going to go ahead and reduce my decimals here just so it looks a little bit simpler looking. Cool. And I can see that some students spent less than 20 hours, and there's a few students that spent more than 20 hours. Those are the students that are going to be getting a bonus, because a student gets a bonus if they spend more than 20 hours on the work. Perfect. So we know some students will get a bonus and others won't. Since we're having a scenario where we have to look at a value and do one thing or the other, that's a sign that we need the if function. If something is true, we do one thing. If it's false, we do the other thing. So I'm going to go to this first student, and I'm going to kind of rewrite this formula in a slightly different way. If their effort in minutes divided by 60 is greater than 20, comma, then they get a bonus. Closing quote, comma, quote, no bonus for you. Okay. So basically, I want to take the number of hours and look at it. If the hours are greater than 20, then the student gets a bonus. Otherwise, they don't get a bonus. I don't know what the bonus is yet, but I know based on this first sentence, and then just by the first sentence, that they're going to get some kind of bonus. And then I can take this and autofill it down. Just a few students. I'm not done yet. I just like to autofill it down a little bit just so I can see that it looks like it's working. And I think it is working because we had a couple students that were more than 20 hours, so they get a bonus. Okay. So now we have a function which allows us to determine which students get a bonus and which students don't get a bonus. That's really the hardest part, using that if function to basically separate the students into two groups, bonus or no bonus. And so far, I'm just putting text in there using the quotation marks, which is something you had to do in one of your SAM projects assignments. Right. Okay, so now we know that. Now we have to figure out, well, what's the bonus going to be? The bonus is the hours spent over 20. Okay, so for instance, if there was a student that spent 30 hours of effort, I need to figure out what the difference between 30 and 20 is. So 30 minus 20 divided by 2. Okay, so that's all I'm going to do there. The bonus is the hours spent in excess of 20 divided by 2. All right, let me go to my formula here. And instead of get a bonus, I'm going to write, I need their hours worked. So instead of that text, I'm going to put in B2 divided by 60, which, well, that's the formula to give me the hours. And I just need to subtract 20. Well, I'm going to need some parentheses here, it looks like. So B2 divided by 60 gives me the hours. Minus 20 will give me the hours over 20. And I'm going to put more parentheses around this. And then I'm supposed to take that difference and divide it by 2. So I'm taking the number of hours of effort, I'm subtracting 20, and then I'm dividing that by 2. And remember, this part of the formula is only going to take place if the student earned a bonus. So when I press enter here, it still says no bonus for you for that first student. But if I autofill this down, there are some students that are going to start to get a bonus.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, I'm constructing this if function in stages. First, I try to figure out, well, what's the piece of information I need? I need hours when I was provided minutes. Cool. I know how to get hours now. And then I construct the if function and say, well, if the hours are greater than 20, then something good happens. Otherwise, something bad happens. Now that I feel like I've got that stage, I'm going back into my if function and I'm enhancing it. I'm giving it more detail. I'm not worried about the no bonus part. In fact, I'm not even worried about the second part of this word problem. I'm just trying to calculate that bonus by taking the hours worked, subtracting 20, and dividing that by 2. It was pretty important, though, that I used all these parentheses, even though it looks pretty wacky in here, because I'm forcing the order of operations. I want to do the division first, and then I want to do the subtraction, and then I want to do this division by 2. I want it to be in that order. Okay, now the word problem tells me the maximum bonus is 5, which means I've got the student here, sample student 5, their bonus is 5.3, and it can't be. The highest the bonus can be is 5. All right, so I have to fix that now. I keep working on student number 1, even though they don't get a bonus. Well, this number that's produced here that I've got highlighted, I know that's pretty tiny. I'm going to zoom in even more on here. Oops, wrong one. There we go. So this number with all the parentheses, this little formula, that produces the bonus. And the bonus is either going to be 5, or it's either going to be over 5 or less. So this is where I'm going to put in a function surrounding this. So I put my insertion point right in front of that first parentheses, but it's after the comma. So I'm still working on the value of true area. And what I'm going to do in front of this is I'm going to put a min function. and then an opening parentheses. So I'm typing the word min and typing an opening parentheses, just even more parentheses on here. And then I'm going to write 5, comma. And then I'm going to jump over here after that number 2 and do a closing parentheses. So I've just put a min function inside of my if function. Now, whenever you do a function inside of another function, you don't have to do the equal sign again. Basically, my value if true has just been enhanced a little bit. I'm going to take the minimum of 2 numbers. I'm going to take either, if 5 is the smallest, then I'm going to take 5. Otherwise, I'm going to take this calculated bonus as the smallest number. Now, when I press enter, of course, nothing happens with that student number 1. Now, when I autofill down, I want you to look at these 2 students here. One of them gets a bonus of 2.04. The other one gets a bonus of 5.31. When I autofill down, the 2.04 is still there, but now this student is maxed out at 5 because we know that this formula produces the number 5.31. 5 is smaller than 5.31, so therefore we're getting the minimum of those 2 options. Okay, let's see what else were we supposed to do here. The bonus is hours spent over 20 divided by 2. The maximum bonus is 5. Students that didn't earn a bonus should have nothing displayed in their bonus cell. Oh, great. Well, we don't want to display no bonus for you. That's kind of that's a little bit rude. So I'm going to double click on this, and we have a couple choices here. We could display a 0. If you put a number in, you don't have to use the quotes. And then it would display kind of like this. Okay, students that get a bonus, they have a grade above 0, others get a 0. But it doesn't say that. It just says they should have nothing displayed in their cell. Okay, well, instead of displaying a 0, we can just display using an empty set of quotes. So I just did 2 quotation marks with nothing in there. And that's going to give me a blank cell for the students that don't get a bonus. Oh, let me autofill all the way down. There we go. But the highest bonus is going to be a 5. And a lot of students have a bonus that's, under 5, but still it's a little bit more, little something extra. So pretty tricky formula using an if function. Yep, that's the whole thing there. So basically, I'm testing to see if their hours are greater than 20. If that's true, I'm going to take the smaller of 2 numbers, either 5 or the calculation. Otherwise, if it's false, I just display an empty set of quotes, an empty cell. I'm going to press my enter key. And I think that concludes that one. Your finished work should look very similar to the picture. Let's see. 2.04, 5, 1.7. That looks pretty good. 2.04, 5, 1.7. Should be written properly. So it can be cool. We did that. All right. There you go.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, sure thing. So, although no extra credit points for you, thanks for asking about this. They are good skills that will definitely come up. Are you a business student?
I'm not.
Not okay. Yeah, it definitely comes up in for business students when they're doing 125E, Excel, and stuff like that. But yeah, all kinds of disciplines. And it's good to be able to know how to do those if functions, as complicated as they can be.
Yeah.
And just using multiple formulas within formulas.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Now, I think you mentioned in an email that you hadn't turned in your the solving problems assignment yet.
I did turn that in.
Cool. Good. Yep. That's what I was going to tell you to do. Make sure you turn it in anyway. And yep. And it's okay that it's a little late because you're allowed to have a couple of assignments that are really late. So you'll still be able to get full credit for that.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Okie doke. So thanks for checking in with me.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Bye.